call the meeting to order. And Beth, would you mind doing the roll call for me today?
Sure, I'll do that. Calling to order a meeting of the Environmental Commission, Tuesday, May 11th, start time 5:44 p.m. Kristin Molle.
Present.
Laura Murphy.
Present.
Kara Abraham Panning.
Present.
Mariana Del Valle.
Present.
Lacey Rock.
Present.
Do you want me to continue with the public comment?
No, that's fine.
Right.
I just thought it would be helpful to have you do roll call. So if there's any members of the public wishing to address the board on matters related to the Environmental Commission that are not on the agenda, you can do so now. Dominique, do we have anybody?
There are no members of the public that have indicated their desire to speak at this time.
Great. Continuing with the agenda, we have two sets of minutes to approve. One was from March 9th, and the other was from April 13th. I don't know if you noticed in one of the links to review, they both said March 9th. The second one was actually the April 13th. So I don't know if anybody had any questions or clarifications on those, or if there's a motion to approve.
I did review both of the sets of minutes, and there was nothing from my memory of those meetings that needed clarification or that seemed incorrect. There were a few just typographical errors that, in the context, I felt like it was all still legible and understandable what the conversation was. So I don't think that they need any official clarification.
Okay. Mariana, were you speaking as well? I'm sorry. No? Okay. Any other questions or comments on the minutes, or any motions on the minutes? We'll do the first one. Let's do the March 9th first, and then April 13th.
I would like to move that we approve the minutes from March 9th.
I'll second that.
Do we need to do a roll call vote, Beth? Or can we raise hands?
Let's do it after we motion for the other set.
Okay. So Kristin, do you want to modify your motion to include both sets of minutes?
I could. I wasn't at last month's meeting, and so I didn't think it was fair to say that it represented a meeting I was unaware of, or unaware of the details of, obviously. Thank you for the meeting minutes to help catch me up.
Yeah. Would anybody else like to make a motion on the second set of minutes?
I will move to approve the second set of minutes with a correction to the date.
Okay, so we've received a motion on both the March 9th and April 13th minutes to approve. And the minutes are correct on the actual minutes for April 13th. I think it's just the link that is incorrect on the website. But thank you, Kara.
Okay,
so
sure. It looked good to me.
Okay. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. Okay, and do you want to do roll call, Beth, or can we do raise hands?
Yeah, we'll do roll call.
Okay, can you do that for me?
All in favor for approval of the minutes as motioned and seconded for March 9th and April 13th. Roll call vote. Lacey.
Aye.
Laura Murphy.
Aye.
Mariana Del Valle.
Aye.
Chelsea 2.
Aye.
Kara Panny.
Aye.
And Kristin Molle.
Aye.
Okay.
Both,
Minutes approved.
both sets of minutes approved. There you go.
Thank you, Beth. Moving on to business items. The first item is sort of administrative in nature. Just wanted to discuss the frequency of meetings and returning to in-person meetings. So Let's just first talk about the frequency. So previously, when the commission was first established, we had been meeting monthly, and I think that was working pretty well. And then even, I think it was we made the move before COVID to move to quarterly meetings, or right around the same time. And that, I think, whether it was before COVID or during COVID, it ended up being very timely, because we all, I think, needed a bit of extra time to adjust to the transitions that we were going through when COVID hit. So I'll just open it up, open up the conversation to see what the thoughts are around moving back to a monthly meeting from a quarterly meeting.
To be honest, we have been almost monthly for the past several months. So I think the additional scheduling of supplementary meetings to our quarterly schedule indicates that monthly is better for what we need to accomplish.
Thanks, Kristin. I don't know if you're able to on your phone. I know you were having some problems last time, but it's just if you can raise hands, that's helpful for me to keep track of speaking order.
I'm actually not seeing the feature to be able to raise hands.
Oh, really? Okay.
It might be the version that I'm on this particular device.
Okay.
Does everyone have that?
I have mine, but you can feel free to just raise your hand since I can see you. You don't have to hold it up either. I'll just note that you raised it and write it down. So yes, Laura.
In that case, I agree with Kristin. I think that probably meeting monthly will have us moving forward a little bit more quickly. And I don't recall that we had moved to quarterly meetings prior to COVID. We had a very long delay between meetings, I think, once the shelter-in-place order was issued. But I do recall that we had emphasized working more in subcommittees and in smaller working groups outside of even monthly meetings to try to advance the initiatives that we were working on. And I would encourage us to do so in terms of moving forward and getting things done and accomplished. But certainly in terms of meeting as a commission monthly seems desirable.
Thank you. Any other comments from commission members? Yeah, Kira.
Yeah, I guess I'm in favor of meeting frequency as a function of the outcomes we're aiming for this year. I don't recall where the latest update stands on what we hope to do, but I guess, yeah, I'd rather meet monthly if it means we can have tight, efficient meetings and get through more activities at at an efficient pace and keep things moving forward, as Laura said. But if we could do every other month and get just as much accomplished and sort of keep it focused, then I'm in favor of that too. I guess I'm just suggesting we don't meet for the sake of meeting. If it's possible to meet every other month, I'm throwing that out as a possibility because it's twice as often as quarterly. Then that's fine. So I guess I want to throw the question sort of back to the rest of the commission. Do we want to be sort of ramping up our impact this year as a commission? And, and sort of packing up the agendas a little bit more ambitiously than we have been over this past very strange year.
Yeah. Anybody have a thought or response? I want to start before I. Yeah, Mariana.
Yeah, I also agree with that. If we wanted to set a goal of, being a little bit more ambitious in coming together on a monthly basis or bi-monthly, I think I want to emphasize what Laura was saying about maybe also kind of making sure that the subcommittees are meeting and kind of moving a lot of the stuff forward as another potential to ensure that we're moving all of the pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious. My impression is that our meetings have been pretty productive, but the downtime has been maybe not as productive. You know, it seems like things have been taking a lot longer, and there's a lot of reasons for that that are completely valid. But I'm trying to think of ways that we can continue to be effective and efficient in our meeting time and in our sort of downtime in between meetings. And one thing that I notice is that when there's a greater meeting frequency, that there's more sort of urgency in getting things done in between the meetings. And maybe I'm just speaking from my own personality and style, is that sometimes, you know, after quarterly meeting, you feel like you have all the time in the world to get something done, and then all of a sudden you don't, and it's gone. But when the frequency is a little bit more greater, you have more urgency to get things done in between. And Kira, maybe, you know, that's a good suggestion if we go to every other month, but then hold that time on the off months for working groups, to have that sort of scheduled time to support the subcommittees. Kristin.
I think I'm in the same, seeing this from the same angle as you, Lacey, that I would like to say that we're going to get stuff done in subcommittees outside this, but for myself, I see that I am definitely getting more done around meetings and meeting deadlines and city council meeting deadlines. And at least for myself, I feel like that will be better fitting with a regular meeting schedule. But I can see how alternatives, I mean, definitely a bi-monthly meeting is still better than quarterly. We haven't tried exactly monthly in a while.
Any other comments or motions?
I'll chime in for a second.
Okay.
This is Beth. I think meeting back to monthly would be a good move. I see it more as accountability of the group and of the subcommittees to each other. So rather than having updates being provided in reports from commissioners, we could actually have presentations given in our business items regarding the steps that are being taken and what's being moved forward in those respective subcommittees.
Any other discussion, or I can open it up to the public? Kristin, I'm assuming your hand is up from before and you don't have a new comment.
That's correct. I'm
Okay.
not really sure. I clicked it again and it just seems to have kept it up.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll open it up to the public before entertaining any motions from commission members. Are there any public comments regarding the frequency of the Environmental Commission meetings from the public? Dominique, do we have anybody here?
Doesn't appear that there are any at this time.
Okay, thanks. Okay, would anybody like to make a motion that would change the frequency of our commission meetings? Yes,
I can make a motion to resume monthly meetings for the EC.
Thank you. Is there a second motion?
I would second the motion to resume monthly meetings.
Beth, would you mind doing the roll call vote for me, please?
Of course. Laura Murphy.
Aye.
Mariana Del Valle.
Aye.
Kara Pani.
Aye.
Kristin Molle.
Aye.
Chelsea Tu.
Aye.
Lacey Rack.
Aye. Okay, motion passes unanimously, so we'll resume monthly meetings beginning in June. The second element of this item was location of meetings. And before we open it up for commission discussion, Beth, is there anything that we should know about regarding what the city is allowing?
At this point, the city council is going to be the first group to resume in-person meetings. And I know Dominique's going to be working out those details as they have their first attempt. So most other commissions, like the Planning Commission, for example, have decided to hold off at this point. That way, our city clerk is not juggling similar messes across various commissions, but is able to get it right and correct with the highest priority at the council level, and then hoping to bring on others as each group is comfortable returning. And that doesn't necessarily mean a majority vote to return, but the Planning Commission has discussed, even if one member is not comfortable with it, that they would not meet in person. But there's also the discussion of being able to do both in person and virtual for a while. So those are the two options on the table. We can have a discussion around this, but at this point, I don't think we would want to necessarily start meeting in person ASAP until things are ironed out.
Do you have a timing of when that might impact other commissions? If it's not a relevant option for us at this point, maybe we can table it until, September or whenever we anticipate other commissions might be coming back to in person.
Right. I can talk with Dominic tomorrow and send a follow-up email to the group.
Okay. Before we table that particular item, I just want to give the commission members an opportunity to share their thoughts on the in-person versus virtual meetings. Yeah, Kira. I have Kira, then Laura, then Kristin.
Yes, I think the more flexibility that we can offer commission members in joining the meetings in person or virtually, the better. And I love very little about this pandemic, but one thing I do love is that it has shown us how much we can do in that flexible way. So I would want to make sure the public is also able to continue attending and contributing virtually to these meetings.
Yeah.
As a working mom, just running around and trying to fit this into my schedule. And I know some of you are in similar positions, working parents on this commission. It certainly makes it easier on days that I don't have childcare lined up, for example, if I can zoom in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks, Kira. Laura, then Kristin.
I would say the same thing. Flexibility is valuable, and there are definitely time benefits for all of us in being able to attend remotely. And I believe that for the public to be able to attend remotely, having a virtual component would be nice to maintain. I think also, as was mentioned earlier, Kristin had commented before the meeting began about less paper being printed to share all of the agendas and associated documents, as well as travel that is not being undertaken to arrive at a meeting. So there are potentially good environmental benefits to maintaining that option as well. So
yeah,
that's it.
Thank you. Kristin?
I'd like to echo what Commission members Kira and Laura said about certainly the convenience factor of fitting it into schedules, but I also want to explore the opportunity of having maybe a hybrid model for not just commission members, but for members of the public. I believe that I have attended vastly more meetings that I don't sit on since going virtual, but I also know that there are some people who are less comfortable with technology, and that may be a barrier, either from lack of having suitable technology or just comfort in speaking up with it. And having recently experienced a few hybrid classroom models, I would like to ask the city staff members if we're considering anything similar. Basically, the idea of having like a microphone on site at a location that a person, member of the public, could physically attend and speak into, which would allow participation of members of the public both online and in person. I feel like that would just almost be best of both worlds in terms of who is affected by which set of barriers.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Kristin. Any other thoughts from commissioners before we open up to public comment? Okay. Dominique, I'm not sure if you're there, but if there's any public comment on the aspect of meeting in person or virtually, let me know.
Members of the public, if you wish to make public comment, please dial *9 if you're on the phone, or use the raise your hand feature. We do have one member of the public wishing to make public comment.
Thank you.
All right. Dianne Nielson, you now have the floor to make your public comment.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. I just wanted to reinforce the idea of having a hybrid meeting because, as someone said, Kristin said, that it gives you the opportunity to get a lot more information and attend more meetings. And I think it gives people more opportunity for engagement. It's nice to see people in person, but this has been hugely beneficial for me. And I imagine people may be more inclined to turn this on at home and watch a meeting instead of having to get in their car and drive down and find someone, they might be cooking dinner while they're watching the meeting. But anyhow, I just want to support that hybrid idea. And that's all. And thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Dianne.
Thank you, Ms. Nielson, for your comments. Any other members of the public, if you wish to make public comment, please dial *9 or use the raise your hand feature. Chair, there are not any other members of the public that wish to make public comment at this time.
Thank you, Dominique. All right, unless somebody has a strong urge to make a motion on this, I think we'll maybe table it until we get a little bit closer to the time that we may actually have the option of returning. Okay. The next business item is to come back to our budget suggestions for council consideration. And for those of you that are online and able to look at the minutes from the last meeting, it might be helpful to look at item B. I don't have a presentation or anything prepared for this. Last meeting, we had discussed, what to request for the base budget. And we also discussed a little bit about, what's most appropriate to bring to council versus what can maybe be navigated through the city's budgetary processes. And I see Craig is joining us today, so he might be able to chime in on that, because we've had a couple of budget items that kind of could fall into both of those categories. just to refresh everybody's mind, we've talked about outreach and support for implementing the Priority Impact Plastic Pollution Prevention Policy, PIP 4. We've also talked about a request for funds to develop a climate action plan. We don't have a strong definition of what the climate action plan would all encompass, if it would be more of a sustainability plan and go beyond carbon, or if it would be strictly sort of focused on carbon and greenhouse gas emissions reductions, and whether or not it would be a CEQA approved climate action plan. So a lot of those things would, I think, need to be fleshed out before making a budget request for that item, because those decisions would impact how much a plan like that might cost. There were also some conversations around, like I said, our base budget and what that would be used for, as well as potentially either special events that Chelsea and Timothy had been working on, or supporting the sustainability of existing special events rather than new events. So Beth, I don't know if you wanted to add anything before we open it up for discussion. That's just a refresher.
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay. So has anything new arisen for any of the commission members that we would like to incorporate into a budget request?
I'm not sure if this is new, but maybe a little bit more developed. So Beth and I and other staff, the city have been looking at different expenditure requirements for a possible pilot community fair that we were thinking of, and we discussed at the last meeting, of starting in the fall, depending on COVID regulations, of course. And so I put together a rough estimate of how much each event could cost, and there's still some gaps, but hopefully that estimate can be helpful. And it is from the different items that I think are essential I'm looking at, I think that each event could cost maybe $3,000 to operate, and the biggest expenditure being porta potties. And I'm sure Craig and others have extensive experience on running these types of events and how much and understanding how much they could cost. I think my question is kind of back to what Lacey talked about, is I'm not sure of a kind of budget request protocol and an amount that could be allocated or requested for different commissions and departments.
The only comment I would have for that, Chelsea, at this point is the commission received yours and Timothy's presentation at our last meeting. And as of right now, we haven't adjusted our work plan to incorporate an event like that. So we might want to ensure that the budget items that we request support the current work plan. So although I don't want to sort of kick the can down the road, we might need to get through some of those other pieces before adding in a budget request that's outside of our existing work plan.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so, whatever is the appropriate first step to clarify that work plan makes sense to me. I know the existing work plan, from what I remember, just has a pretty general item on creating a green recovery committee, and then that's about it.
Yeah.
As an item. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is kind of fitting under that, but it's based on the presentation you gave last meeting, it could be potentially a big undertaking for the commission. So that might, just because of that potential, we might want to have deeper discussion about it So I'm gonna, well, let me ask if there's any other comments or questions first from other commission members. Okay. So just to sort of, again, give a little bit of a refresher, our base budget from last year had been reduced to 500. Previous to that, it was 2,500. The PIP 4 amount that we have discussed requesting is around 22,000 for implementation of that. And again, recalling what I just said about the climate action plan, that could be anywhere from 40 to 100,000, sort of depending on the scope of that particular plan. And that would require more council direction and support and coordination. So those are sort of the three primary areas, with also, you know, just noting that Chelsea has done some work, and if we have time before the budget request period is due, we could maybe add in another item for events. So Craig, with that little overview, I'm actually sort of curious if you have any insight or thoughts as to how to sort of go about making a budget request to the city beyond our commission's base budget.
Thank you for the question. I was hoping it would be asked. The only reason I'm here today, or the principal reason I should say. I would say this just in general. If the commission wants to do you know, some big things, this is a good year to ask. The city is coming out of the pandemic stronger than we went into, which is a very peculiar thing and was completely, you know, beyond our hopes a year ago. But you know, we will. The city's going to be able to do big things. We went from a $3.7 million fund balance 5 years ago to 27.3 or something, some big number. And that's without the American Rescue Act money that we'll be getting, another 8.5 to 8.9 million. So if you want, I have had discussions with the mayor and with other council members about, you know, we should include some sort of climate action plan in this year's budget. I will tell you that as well, the budget is very, very close to going out for the first time, like by Thursday. Thursday is going to be done. We're going to send it up. I honestly don't know as I speak how much money is in there for the commission budget. We're going to talk about it. We're going to introduce it next Tuesday. We'll have at least 2 more meetings on it. So if something's not in there immediately, we can add something. So my other, while I'm talking, the other thing that I would suggest is that the commission spend some time, like 6 months, 4 months, something like that, on reviewing the various ways cities and communities can go about creating a climate action plan. There's a wide range of angles into that question. I have my own, and I will advocate later for my favorite idea, but not now. But you should spend some time on that. You should budget some money to ask people to present their ideas on that topic, and then yeah, you're going to spend easily, you know, 30,000, and you know, maybe 3 times that, depending upon which direction you take. So, I'm sorry. My very simple suggestion is ask for what you want, because this is a year you'll probably get it.
Okay, that's good to know. One follow-up, and maybe this is only relevant for federal stimulus funds, but are there restrictions around timing of when the money must be spent?
The short answer is yes. But and the federal rules aren't out just yet. Federal rules are a little bit late. We know how much money we're going to get. We don't know exactly what we can use it for. I believe we have to spend it, and get half of it in 1 year and half it the other year. So you're going to have 2 years to spend it, or a little bit less, 18 months to. I would plan on 18 months is the timeline that the money should be expended. And the only two things that I'm aware of that you can't spend it on is you can't reduce taxes or pay pension expenses.
Okay.
But almost anything else you can do.
Good thing that's outside of our commission's purview. Huh? Okay, but that's for the federal funding, but you said that we haven't even received yet. The other stuff might have the restrictions.
Well, but the city has money to do big things.
Okay.
Like this city has never had before. So don't be bashful is my suggestion on asking for money to do impactful, long range things.
Okay. Just come up with it quick, right? Yeah, Kira.
Yes, two questions about that. One is, while I understand the PIP4 implementation money that we're asking for to be very connected to the Environmental Commission's actual working function, as developers of the ordinance, that makes sense to me. The climate action plan, I'm seeing that more as something that the commission would recommend the city take on, not as an environmental commission expense per se, because wouldn't that indicate that we are going to be actively involved in, I don't know, managing or developing the plan itself? That just seems a little bit bigger than what our commission can do. Secondly, just want to pair the idea of the climate action plan, which Lacey clarified to be essentially emissions reduction, an emissions reduction plan across the city, pairing that with actual climate adaptation and mitigation. So we've discussed at a few different meetings the need to plan for sea level rise and also look at what our neighboring cities are planning in regards to sea level rise, maybe position ourselves to be eligible for state funding around sea level rise. All of that seems also like an important budget item for the commission to recommend the city take on. Again, not for the commission, but as an activity that's going to be important for the city to take on, most likely by hiring consultants.
Yeah, I guess I would say two things. I see the commission's best role in the climate action plan as being the reviewer of different approaches to that, and then being on the, making a recommendation to the council on what approach or what, consultants we use. And I would also just, while emissions is, one good way to go about it, that leaves a lot off the table in terms of sustainability more broadly. So I would encourage you not to limit a climate action plan, and in fact, I might ultimately want to move off of that description to something more broad than just related to climate. As important as climate is.
Any other thoughts or questions from the commissioner, especially while we have Greg here? Laura?
I'm still formulating my thoughts. So essentially, my area of interest in terms of our Environmental Commission budget is for the Habitat Subcommittee. And as I indicated, and is recorded in the meeting's minutes from our last meeting, it's a very, very modest amount of miscellaneous funds that I would request for that, simply to be able to cover very miscellaneous expenses as they come up, somewhat unexpectedly. And so it's not fully planned out. I'm finding that with the partnerships that have been established for that particular, for the activities associated with that subcommittee, a lot of material costs are being covered by community partners as well as by city departments such as Public Works. So in that respect, similarly to what we were just discussing, it's not necessarily that the Environmental Commission would need to request more funds for expanding habitat-related activities, but that we might review and recommend that sufficient funds be made available through city departments like Public Works in order to continue the activities that we are partnering to accomplish.
Chelsea?
I was just wondering, for our various items or requests in formulation, what is the process that we should be aware of, Craig, and some deadlines that the commission needs to be aware of?
Excellent question. I would end this, you should make a request at this meeting.
Yeah.
Don't forget to do that. If you want to have, I would make your request now, because I mean the council is going to see the budget next week for the first time, and I want to be clear, it's not too late next week to have a good idea or a more defined request and then submit it. That's fine too. But if by the first week of June, by June 2nd, we really need to know what the commission needs by June 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, and when I say by June 2nd, that's when the council is going to see it. So, a couple of days in advance would be great.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Yeah, so how I'm interpreting that is, and understanding that is, we can make big requests at this meeting, and we should. And that can still change. It can still be refined. But in order to sort of catch up or keep pace with the way the budget timeline is progressing, we don't have a lot of opportunity to sort of look into it, like to really do some of that more in-depth research before our first request.
Right. I would suggest, 2 to 5 things that you want to do and give me a budget number for it.
Okay.
Not later than, let me look at my calendar. Hold on. Give me a second. Not later than, I'll say the 28th.
Okay.
I'll just explain one more thing. It's kind of fun. I've had more discussion now with you than I've had with my bosses on this topic. So
good to know where your priorities lie, Craig.
Well, it's my job to present a starting budget, and then the budget sort of gets manipulated around. I don't mean that in a bad way. So that budget that I have to first describe goes on Thursday. And one of the things that I think we're trying to do is they're trying to hold off on how do we spend the American Rescue Act money as a separate topic. But I think what's going to happen is there's going to be people who want to do things in the community. And coming out of the pandemic, we want to be stronger than we were going into it. Okay, great. And they're going to say, can I do A, B, and C? And I'll say, yeah, you can do that. And we'll dip into that little extra money that we're going to get. So everyone, be calm. We can do those things. So that's why I don't need everything today. And I'm going to need it by the 28th, so I can, if it's a big topic beyond our budget that would cause our budget to go into deficit, I can say, hold on, we got a little escape valve over here.
So one follow-up question I have is, with a lot of the work that we've been discussing, it may require consultants, both with the plastics implementation as well as the sustainability plan or climate action plan. Some of that might be inevitable, especially with the climate action plan or sustainability plan, but staffing is short, right? And if we want to do anything, even with consultants, those consultants still need to be sort of guided and supported. What is the feeling towards requesting additional staff?
Well, I'll say it's always appreciated at the staff level, but the truth is, again, you're hearing this before my boss is here. We have 34 positions that we are adding, either because we cut back a lot, which is why we're coming out of the pandemic so strong. One of the reasons. So we're either adding new or bringing back 34 positions in the proposed budget. And that includes a new planner and includes an outreach coordinator in the city manager's office, and will include and I'll say an unfettered assistant city manager who doesn't have to do double or triple duty. So again, don't hold back. If we're going to be able to staff up to meet this community's needs.
Okay, thank you. Well, if it's helpful for the commission to discuss this and sort of have a starting point from which to grapple with, I'm happy to just start with the numbers that we began with earlier. With the sustainability plan, remember it was somewhere between 30 and 100,000. With the commission budget, it was 2,500. And with the PIP4, it was 22,000. Chelsea, I don't know what you had, but I'd love to just, is that a starting point for the rest of the commission members? Does that seem reasonable given the new information that Craig has shared and the priorities and the work plan that we've developed? Kristin, go ahead.
I think probably a good thing to offer at this time is budgets that were created when we didn't realize that we had such a strong budget to work with, because it means that this was a priority enough that we were willing to ask for it before we knew we had it. And so there's no reason not to ask for it now that we have support. I feel like we can think about this, but we only have so much time, as the city manager put forth. So we should absolutely support the work that our commission members went and set up for us when we didn't realize that we had the option to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to add something, and that is I have to go. Thank you so much for your volunteer service. If I can ever help or any other staff can help, just ask. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Craig.
Yeah.
Kira.
Yes, again, I just propose that we include climate adaptation, specifically sea level rise, coastal erosion, you know, consultants in that mix. Lacey, again, I appreciate that you clarified last time that that is not part of a classic climate action plan, which focuses on different things. So I'd like to keep that in there. And I defer to you, Lacey. I think you and maybe some others on this commission have a better sense of what that kind of consultant fee costs. But I want to make sure we don't miss the opportunity to fund that. I think that Seaside needs to look at that issue ASAP. I don't want to go another year without looking at it while our neighbors are maybe actively making plans.
Okay. Thanks, Kira. Yeah, Chelsea. 1 second, buddy. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. Just to throw out some ballpark numbers. Now that we've heard we can dream big, based on an estimate of operation costs or expenditures at $3,000 per event, and I'm hoping that we could potentially run 4 pilots, and so that would probably get us to a $12,000 request. And in addition to just following the model that Monterey used when their market was active before COVID, they actually set up a permit system where vendors pay somewhere from $55 to $90 to participate for each event. Plus, I think an additional $50 annual fee for administrative costs that the business association, which runs the market in Monterey, I think needs to process different applications and different logistical things, right? So hopefully the $12,000 request for expenditure will get reimbursed and be reduced over time, and potentially even more with donations or sponsorships. And of course, all of this is pending, I think, on the commission's approval and update of this being part of our work plan.
You said 12,000 total or 12,000 per event?
The ballpark estimate I have per event is around $2,600. So, you know, just rounding up, $3,000 per event. And this would include what I saw on Green Waste's website for waste, recycling, and compost collection for kind of a sizable bin that probably will need a little bit more capacity for, but that's kind of the bin I was looking at is a 1-yard bin. And including city personnel time that Beth came up with for an estimate, and then including portable toilets as well. So those are kind of the base costs that I was looking at that add up to 3,000 or just shy of 3,000 per event.
Okay, and then 4 events, so it's like 12,000 total. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. I thought I saw someone else's hand. Was that Laura's? Hi, Laura.
Yeah, I just wanted to add kind of support to your question earlier about what about city staff time? What about potentially hiring additional staff and or guaranteeing a certain amount of staff time that could be dedicated towards exploring, scoping, or executing initiatives that we are moving forward. I don't know how we would work that into a budget request, but I do like the idea very much because that seems to be a pinch point.
Yeah, one of the things that was in my mind when I asked about that was, you know, if we had a staff person, we might not need the consultants for the PIP4. Like if that was a waste sort of materials management type person, that would be really beneficial because planners aren't going to do that. And, you know, maybe somebody within facilities But out of the positions that they're probably hiring back, I don't think that's one of them. And we have the green waste support, but that's so divided that we miss a lot because they're spread throughout different communities. Yeah, Beth.
Just a thought on the positions. I don't know if the city, prior to the more recent posting for the community outreach engagement specialist, or whatever the official title is, has existed before. I know that they had staff who did that type of work, but I don't know if it was ever a dedicated position. So when I think about how staff is hired in the positions that they're hired into, I see it more as getting away from some of the more traditional job titles and being creative with new job titles and new position descriptions that are more fit to the community. Because when you hire into, let's just say, an assistant planner role, which they haven't had that position in ages, at least filled, you're looking at something very generic. And it's true that you do have to have planner positions of all levels at the city, but you can have also specialized positions for meeting very specific goals, like a climate adaptation planner, for example, or even an environmental planner to get more specific on touching of some of those things, which, you know, from the budget perspective, that would be more of the job of others to look at how much we've spent on consultants, for example, and what could be saved if that work were done in-house should that position be created. So I encourage you guys and myself to think about different types of titles that you don't traditionally see in the city that could be better fit for our community.
One that pops into my mind is a sustainability coordinator. That sort of supports a lot of the different things we're talking about.
Right.
Kristin, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how there was a recent look at how consultants can provide you with a blueprint, but then someone still has to follow through. Whereas if we were to provide some support for what Beth is suggesting there, which honestly I thought that was a great suggestion, for a hired staff position, then not only do you have the work that the consultant would have done, but you have the person who will follow through on it. And that seems very valuable to continue to think about.
Yeah, and for some of that, we'll still need, you know, like for climate action planning, a sustainability position or even a specialized planner isn't gonna, I don't think, have the ability to do a sustainability / climate action / adaptation / resiliency plan. But they could coordinate the consultants and support them and improve the communication with the community and, you know, make sure no balls are dropped and all of that stuff. Beth, is that an old hand or did you have something else you wanted to add?
I'm good.
Okay. So in the interest of time, I feel like I feel slightly compelled to actually like put something forward to have us vote, but know that we can still adjust if necessary. So I'm going to just sort of reiterate this and try to describe what each of them are. And then I'll take public comment and then commission can comment once again, and then maybe we can entertain a motion. So I'm going to say request 120,000 to develop a sustainability / climate action / adaptation plan. And that would also include a review period of like what kind of plan we want to develop, similar to what Craig was saying of, you know, let's do a little bit of research first. So we can do that on our own, but we also might want some outside help because I know a bit about it, but I'm not an expert when it comes to some of the city government plans and CEQA and things like that. So that might be helpful. So that's 120. 12,000 for events. However, I don't want to speak for the rest of the commission members. I just want to sort of put a little asterisk next to that, because I think there were some questions from the commission when it was presented last meeting. So we'd want to talk through those, I think, first, before like really dedicating what those funds are going to be going for. But overall, it might be couched as like a events and economic recovery support, since that's the commission subcommittee that it falls within. And then for the PIP4, we could bump that up to 30,000, which would definitely be valuable, and it would allow us to increase the amount of grants or support that businesses are getting to go through the transition. And then for our budget, Laura, I'm sort of looking at you right now in your little screen. If we bumped that up to 5,000, if that would help you with, and then knowing that that 5,000 would also be sort of for your miscellaneous habitat committee items. So, I mean,
certainly it's always nice to have more available, right? Just in case. But in terms of the activities that we're doing currently, there is no bigger picture coordinated plan as far as what that would be needed for in the coming year. However, I feel like such a plan is potentially coming in the next several months with community partners and other conversations. But I don't feel like I have a foundation or a basis to present for why any amount would be needed, aside from having some miscellaneous funds available for things that come up, and to be able to contribute to a collective effort is always valuable. So okay. I would say if you would like to propose that, I would welcome it, but I don't have a reason to propose that amount or any amount specifically.
Okay. And just to clarify, that 5,000 wouldn't be just for your habitat subcommittee. It would be sort of our working budget, but we would know that we could allocate items to that if necessary. Just offering that for everybody listening. Kristin.
I was just thinking about Laura's comment about not having a specific amount and how much we have been working with community volunteer organizations, and perhaps proposing a budget item of community organization grants for organizations that are doing the volunteer work out there. That might be a way to have a specific amount of money that then that we're asking for without having to justify exactly what everything is, because we can work with their budgets and what they're spending, and then have a few grants because they're doing our work and making things possible that we have been spearheading and talking about in grant proposals, if that makes sense. I can clarify if that didn't come out as well. It's a lot easier, in your own head than to try and get it out really quick.
I think I got it. I think I am interpreting it as like funds to support mini grants to other groups in our community that do projects related to habitat.
We just need to be careful with what would be classified as a gift of public funds or not. And with the habitat work, I would more see it as, us voting on a specific amount for a specific good or items that are then in turn used by those groups, versus trying to create like a mini grant program within the EC to decide on what's allocated and kind of walking that line.
Okay, that's really valuable to know that that's a better way of doing it.
The thought that popped into my head with habitat was trees and like tree replacement policies and communicating about care and health and growing of trees, but I'm not proposing that. I'm just saying that's what popped into my head. So that total, that budget total, if we added everything in that I described, would be 167,000. It doesn't mention anything about a staff position. So if that was something we wanted to propose, was to add a sustainability position or coordinator, or maybe we're not ready for that. I feel like these pieces are harder because we haven't been talking about them for a while, right? So it takes a little bit to get comfortable with some of these new ideas, but that's just the nature of moving fast, I guess, right now.
I'm also comfortable if the city is looking to fill 34 positions and a few of them are planning or coordinating related, if there's any way to include working on sustainability or climate issues in their job description as they're being hired on, then I think that would be ideal for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mariana.
I guess to that point, is there, could we just make recommendations as to what type of positions we want to see and what type of job descriptions / when talking about like inclusion and making sure that those positions are being inclusive and mindful in reaching out to the community and making sure that those positions are being hired by hired in the sense of community members. Is that something that we can do? Make sense, those sort of recommendations?
I probably, Beth, maybe you know better than I do, but you're not talking about any sort of budget aspect. You're just talking about allocating for diverse pools of candidates and diverse hiring of these 34 positions. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, and also kind of adding some of those descriptions that we've been talking about, or positions, or the names of the positions.
So I think there's maybe two thoughts I have. One is whether or not you want to communicate these things as an individual, or if the EC wants to come together and write a letter and submit it more in an official manner to the council. So after this meeting, and as soon as I can get it, I'm going to send out the link to the first budget meeting, which is a special meeting of the city council that Craig referred to. I think it's on the 16th, to encourage participation in that. And at that time, it's less about talking about the EC, but if you feel like you want to make a public comment and as related to what you've observed in your volunteer time on the EC about what is needed in the city, what is potentially lacking and what can be improved, I would highly encourage your participation at that level. And also, I think something written from a commission who has openly discussed all the topics that Mariana just brought up could be helpful for the city to hear that from one of its commissions. The discussions might be happening, or maybe they're not, or maybe there's certain job posting boards that HR uses that people are unaware of. Maybe there's other ones that they could tap into. So sharing what you're aware of and what the community uses as a resource, if they're in touch with the city as an organization at all, would be helpful. The question about like the position titles, I would definitely encourage that if you've seen titles in other places where you think it could be beneficial, just even in terms of how they describe the duties or what they say they value as an organization in those descriptions. That'd be helpful for the city to see. What I think is a difficult next step is them updating and revising existing position descriptions. which takes more work on the part of HR, who I think is at this time also a limited department, but is staffing up as well. But that body of work for some positions, especially in the planning series, they haven't been touched in years. Again, that could be something a consultant is hired to do, but it should be a priority to reflect the changing community.
Sorry, I was just taking some notes because I want to, we're merging, I think, conversations. One, we still need to sort of finalize is the budget proposal, and then equally important, the comments that we may want to provide either independently or as an EC. And I'll just say, if anybody does want to write a letter on behalf of the EC, I think that would be great, and happy to share it with the commission to review. So that we can speak with one voice, which can be powerful. But before we go too far, I actually I promised that I'd give an opportunity for public comment regarding that budget description that I had proposed. So Dominique, can we open up public comment on the proposed budget allocations that I described previously?
Absolutely. Members of the public, if you wish to make public comment, please dial *9 or use the raise your hand feature. All right. Chair, we do have one person wishing to make public comment at this time. Dianne Nielson, you now have the floor to make your public comment.
Thank you again, commissioners. I don't know if this is the time to talk about when the city manager talked about having more money. Is this the time I should tell you my thoughts?
Yes, please.
Okay. So one thing, and I think it would be appropriate for the environmental committee, is to start an ad campaign of short videos on the city's website and other ways, maybe public announcements on NPR radio and that sort of thing. You know, the Keep America Beautiful organization is to use some of the ideas from that organization to clean up our city streets, sidewalks, yards, businesses, to keep all the trash or discarded items and materials and litter from going to the bay, which we have a lot of that in my travels around here. There is a lot of that going on. Everything from huge grease spots in the street or the driveways of people's homes to items coming out of trash cans to people just throwing things in the gutter. And all of those are definitely having a huge impact on our environment. So I think it would be great to start a campaign to organize some of the groups and some of the neighbors to take pride in their community and to understand what's happening with these things that are discarded, that aren't picked up. So that's the short explanation of that. And the other is on the tree projects that was brought up, to really think about that. And that's a great idea, because we do need more trees in our city, and ways to have people sort of have a personal ownership in a way to take care of these trees, whether it's a dedication or something like that. And also, I don't know if this has anything to do with you, and to take care of those trees, maybe we need a water buffalo, an extra water buffalo. That could be a Parks and Rec, which is my area, but those are my comments. I used every second. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Appreciate that. So I'd like to bring it back actually now to the commission. Are there any motions on the budget that I proposed? Including changes that you want to make before a motion is made. If we don't approve anything at this meeting, we will just either not have anything to give Craig, or we'll have to do a special meeting before the 28th if we want to put anything into the budget. Yes, Chelsea.
I was thinking that Laura would make the first motion. Did you want to make the motion, Laura, or do you want me
I was thinking it over whether I wanted to make an amendment, but I do not. So I move that the EC will propose the budget as outlined by Lacey in detail previously to the City Council.
I will second.
Roll call vote.
Yeah.
Mariana Del Valle,
Aye.
Chelsea Tu,
Aye.
Kara Penny,
Aye.
Laura Murphy.
Aye.
Kristin Molle,
Aye.
Lacey.
Aye. All right, motion passes unanimously. I will work with Beth to get that written up, and then we'll share it with all of the commission members as well. Chelsea. Oh, you're muted.
May I respond just to a couple of the comments that Diane made? Okay, I really appreciate your comments, Diane, and I think that there's maybe a few ways we can weave in some of the ideas that you raised on bringing awareness or increasing awareness and like a shared responsibility on keeping our neighborhoods clean. I think maybe one way is potentially folding that idea is kind of part of the goal of implementing the PIP4 ordinance in different outreach efforts or ad efforts, you know, or it could be folded into, if we want to make it some kind of independent ad campaign, like could be potentially taken out of a general EC budget if that's something that we want to take on later. I can see the different ideas kind of converging.
Thanks, Chelsea. Okay. The next item on the agenda is to receive updates from subcommittees. Yes, start us off, Laura.
My favorite time to talk about the subcommittee for habitat. So I believe I mentioned this last month, but it's ongoing. I've been joining Friends of Seaside Parks Association, FOSPA, on a weekly basis. Every Saturday morning from 10 a.m. until noon, they are hosting a rotating park work day in, I think, 7 different parks. And this upcoming Saturday will be at Fernando Park, which is a relatively new Park under FOSPA stewardship, and that will be the last of the first round. So the following week, we start over again. And so FOSPA will be hosting these events every Saturday, and they are focused on park beautification, but a very significant component of that is maintaining the pollinator habitats in the majority of the parks. At Fernando Park, we have not yet established pollinator habitat, but that is going to be a goal for our ongoing expansion of pollinator habitat. But everywhere else, it involves a lot of maintenance and care of pollinator plants. So that's excellent. And we've had a great deal of support. I feel that this has been very successful. At Lincoln Cunningham Park last weekend, you know, several weeks into this endeavor, there were 18 volunteers present, and very consistent presence from Councilmember Pacheco, also from our mayor, also Parks and Rec Commission members, including the chair, Pacheco, as well as member Nielson. So that's excellent. Also, Sustainable Seaside has had a very strong contingency of volunteers as they steward one of the parks that is on this rotation. I just really want to emphasize how excellent it is to see all of the different community members coming out, seeing community leadership participate. It's fun, it's great for everybody, and it's looking beautiful. So absolutely encourage everyone to come out and participate in those work days when you can. It's very low pressure, a couple hours on a Saturday morning. It's social, but it's socially distanced. Obviously, we're outdoors. And the tools have been provided regularly by Public Works, as well as mulch materials and other things that are needed. So it's excellent. I'm really happy with the performance of the pollinator habitat that has been established. Things are starting to bloom much more consistently now as we're getting into the warmer part of the season, and also with the coordinated efforts of all of these different entities in support of that. Otherwise, Habitat Subcommittee, I guess this really would be a commissioner report, but I'll just say it now. There will be a pollinator week in June, and our staff liaison, Ms. Rocha, has shared with me a declaration or a proclamation, which was first made in 2019 after we had received our Bee City USA designation. And so we'll be submitting an updated proclamation for the mayor to announce before that pollinator week in June. And I think that's everything.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, Chelsea, a question or comment?
Yeah, thank you. That's all fantastic. Especially seeing the fruits of your labor. I've been meaning to come out to one of the events, and I saw I think a calendar a while ago, and I just want to make sure that I have the updated calendar so I can make sure to come out.
Beth has forwarded the calendar as it was shared by FOSPA to all commission members. So we might ask her to resend that. We will be sending an updated calendar probably after the next FOSPA meeting, which will be on the 17th. But it should have been sent in the last 2 weeks, I believe, if you wanted to search for a message from Beth.
Thank you.
Yeah, those events have been really great. I just want to echo Laura's comment and really appreciate the different groups coming together. It's also really fun for the kids. So if anybody has kids and they're like want to get them out of the house for a couple of hours on Saturday, it's just a really fun time to sort of let the kids run and play together, and then can get a little bit of work done and just connect a little bit socially as well. Chelsea, do you have an update on your subcommittee?
I think that I've probably provided most of the updates. Yeah, I know it's the conversation on the community fair is ongoing, and it's kind of odd to put the budget cart before the horse, but I was very aware that there's some upcoming deadlines. So appreciate everybody's accommodating this kind of reversal process. And I think there are some questions that people raised, and what the community fair would look like, and love to continue that discussion here or in next month's meeting. Beth and Timothy and I have talked about really nailing down on location. So I think probably the easiest to book, like most spacious and the most visible location is either at City Hall or across the street at the park, or both if it becomes a bigger event. And so I think that's just something I want to make sure that sounds right to people. That's different from the Broadway location that the former farmers market was at. And I think it might be better because it doesn't require us to close off streets. So that's one point. And then I'm hoping to get a response from the Neighborhood Improvement Committee, in which I've reached out to their staff liaison a couple of times. And I'm just also continuing to look at numbers. I think at the end of the day, having a successful and continuous event means that the numbers work out. Hopefully we can bring some balance between expenditures and revenue. And then also, of course, having a number of different local businesses participate. And so I'm continuing outreach with Timothy. And so I'd love to hear any additional concerns, thoughts, suggestions.
I'll open it up to the commission first to respond. Laura.
Chelsea, I think last time that we spoke about this, there had been a suggestion to consider communicating and coordinating with other events which are established and professionally managed, or at least managed by those with experience, that are already successful events that do bring the community out. And I thought both trying to coordinate with those events and encourage greater sustainable practices within those events as they are, but also potentially using an existing event as a way to kind of add on a component like this to maybe potentially enhance the success of it, and also reduce a certain amount of effort in bringing the community to the event. That would be novel, that would be additional. If they're already gathering for a known event that's already successful, if it's possible to coordinate with those event planners to add this event that you're planning and designing onto something that's already happening, in addition to encouraging better sustainability in the larger event itself. I just wanted to add that as a suggestion.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing that back, Laura. I think in terms of improving green practices in other events, I think that's very interesting. It could be something that different people managing those events are already thinking about, but it sounds separate from this community fair idea. And I was also, I did give some additional thought, and I haven't talked with Timothy or other staff or members about this, and on kind of tacking onto certain events that are already happening to minimize cost. And I think my current thinking with having this event is that it could probably brand much better as a standalone event. If the goal is to not only bring a pilot, but also something that's kind of a thing on its own that can continue over time, so that unless there's something that there's a natural fit for. So I was thinking, for example, if we were tacking onto jazz event, it's kind of odd to have that, and then also a community fair that's very that then has a lot of different parts to it. But others might have different thinking about it. And I think my main reservation to tacking onto a different event, unless there's something of a natural fit, is branding and making sure that what this community fair is done well in and of itself.
So if I can add something real quick, I in just our talks about budget, I linked up Chelsea with Dan Mewis, who's the Park and Rec director, who's in charge of doing a lot of events in the city, from last time we had 4th of July up at the golf course to Blues and Park events, and doing the coordination of all of those. It would be helpful to have a discussion to see when he's given the green light to resume some things. And although I understand not wanting to tack on to an event, that one is happening across the street at Laguna Grande Park, and you have a crowd of people that you've captured who are likely going to be parking on the City Hall side, that it's a good opportunity to take advantage of a crowd that otherwise would not likely come down for an event that they're not familiar with. So I would be open to all possibilities of pairing up, not necessarily being in the mix with that group necessarily, or that event, but just in terms of proximity and getting more exposure. So I think it's important that we touch base and look at the city calendar of events that have happened pre-COVID and try to see what could potentially be a good match, all those separate.
Thank you for that suggestion. I think that helped me think about potential pairing a little bit differently. So that's really helpful, and I would love to follow up with you, Beth, and look to see which upcoming things could be good pairing, and if anybody knows any upcoming events that you like to suggest for potential pairing, that would be really appreciated as well.
I would say, Chelsea, you might consider communicating with Sustainable Seaside. They, depending on how reopening progresses, they do anticipate having a tour in August or September, which would be a tour of the parks rather than a sustainable living tour, which they have done in years past. But that might be an opportunity to strategically locate an event where there would be people otherwise gathering and interested and focused on sustainability.
Thank you. I will reach out to them, definitely.
Thanks, Chelsea, and thanks for the comments. So we'll continue to listen as it evolves. It sounds like there's nothing definitive yet, and you're still working on it, and that's awesome. So if you have questions in the interim, feel free, as always, obviously, as you are, to reach out to Beth. I'm happy to help as well. Otherwise, we'll just continue to listen as it evolves. I can do the update for the PIP4. There's really not much of an update. We're just sort of in a holding pattern. Last time Beth and I talked, we're waiting for, I think, the food truck ordinance maybe to get through this month. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, Beth, but maybe we're looking at June right now for having a first read for the PIP4.
Likely second meeting of June if everything goes through with the food truck ordinance, which is a council priority. So that's why it's happening first.
Okay. So second meeting of June, and Beth and I have just been working a little bit on updating the staff report and getting everything, all the materials complete for that. So I guess this is a business item. I'll ask if there's any public comment on any of the updates from the subcommittees. So Dominique, let me know if there's any public comment.
Members of the public, if you wish to make a public comment, please use the raise your hand feature or dial *9. Chair, there are no members of the public that wish to make public comment at this time.
Thank you. We'll move on to reports from commissioners, if there are any. I don't see any. We don't have any on the agenda. Beth, do you have any reports for us today?
No, I don't.
Okay. Then, hold on, let me grab my calendar. So before we adjourn, then, just wanted to clarify, our next meeting will be in June on the, is it the third Tuesday, second Tuesday?
The second, June 8th.
8th. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. All right. So we will see you all back here June 8th. I will be joining you from Minnesota. I will be there for the summer, so I'll probably be hot and humid and sweaty. But I'll be here nonetheless. And until then, please keep your emails, keep track of your emails, because Beth and I may be sending out some information related to the budget, since that's going to be happening on a bit of a quicker timeline, and there may be things that come up in between now and our next meeting. So as always, thank you all so much for the work that you do for this commission and for our city. So grateful for your time, your energy, your thoughts, and your passion. And have a wonderful evening. This meeting is adjourned.